My little lady. No, I played Bob Dylan, but I cannot play the harmonica. What I love about Cannes is that it's an inherently multicultural festival. I mean, you have films from all over the world. And, you know, one of the first things I said to Terry was, you know, we've got to have a really diverse jury. And he very proudly said, you know, it is always, you know, there's always gender parity and racial diversity in the makeup of the jury. It's part of the life of the festival.
Is there a weight of responsibility? You know, I mean, you're basically sitting in judgment of, you know, the artistic works of your peers?
We will but offend. We can but fail. Because it's art is a subjective thing, isn't it? There's an inherent ridiculousness to it. You know, trying to choose the best in such a diverse array of what I'm sure will prove a series of exceptional films. It's not the opinion of one person. It's not a jury of one. So you've got 9 people sort of placing their opinions forward and trying to balance and trying to reach consensus.
Can you share with us your favorite Cannes memory?
First time I went with a film, an Australian film that was in the marketplace. So I got in to see The Ice Storm, and I'd borrowed a frock. It's such an extraordinary film. So I think that was my first time sort of walking up those steps and going in to see a film. I mean, I loved being there with Todd and Rooney for Carol.
It was a lovely movie. I was talking to one of the producers at one time, and he said that Harvey just didn't promote the film. I mean, did you feel that? Did you feel like it didn't get its due in the marketplace because it wasn't given the right push?
I was disappointed when he was brought on as a producer. I couldn't quite work out why. And I said that at the time. You know, I didn't feel he understood or particularly supported Todd's previous film, I'm Not There. But whether it was his involvement, you know, I think there'd already begun to be a bit of a stink around him, and I think that the association of him probably didn't help the film any. That said, I've been stopped in the supermarket by more people about that film than I have by many others that I've made. So if a film doesn't necessarily linger at the box office, it doesn't mean that it's not going to have a reach. I think there's so many platforms for people to encounter films now that our sense of a film's success, I think, really needs to be a lot more elastic.
Let's talk about this extraordinary moment for women, both in Hollywood and in the world at large, where women are finally speaking up and being heard on such critical issues as sexual abuse, pay inequity, and other, you know, disparities that exist in entertainment and media.
The future is always imagined in the mind of the artist, and that's why certain stories, certain paintings, certain sculptures, certain films, certain novels have been profound provocations, have been banned because they're shocking. You know, change is rarely polite and nice at first. I feel like the dam has broken.
Definitely.
There were cracks in the dam for an incredibly long time, and we were trying to sort of, you know, put putty on them, and we can hold this together. But it's not just women. It's also men. It's also people of different sexual persuasions. Our job is, yes, to be creative, but one of our primary jobs as artists is to be fearless.
Yes.
And I think we are fearlessly examining the issues in our industry. We are in a particularly violent place towards women, and we have been for a decade or so. And I think that there's been a lot of achievements made. The universal suffrage was a long time ago.
Yes, it was.
You know, but I feel like we've let a lot of things go as women. And we've put up for a lot of things for a long time, but the dam has broken. And I think there's no point putting that dam back up. Everyone has a different perspective on it. I mean, as an actor, for instance, I never want to tell an audience what to think about a character. I never want to tell an audience what to think about a story. You present it in warts and all, and you allow an audience to converse about it. The art is the provocation that produces the conversation. And I think the most important thing in this particular time is that we talk, yes, we express, yes, but we also listen. You know, and I think that there's, as I try and say to my children, we have to put our listening ears on, you know?
What do you think of the state of the movie business? It's difficult to get female-centric films financed still to this day. Where do you see this all going?
In the best possible way, women have stopped being patient and finding the ways that we work. I mean, it's really interesting that a lot of teams have emerged. You know, people banding together, women working in writing teams or producing teams, or actors who have a directorial eye, you know, or a producerial eye, starting to produce.
And is that appealing to you? Can you see yourself directing at some point?
I
know
mean,
you haven't theater,
it's a complicated thing. You know, it's you know, I have 4 children. I have a very rich life, which I enjoy in the theatre. I mean, I enjoy story in all its forms. I enjoy working with visual artists, and I enjoy working with people in the film industry. I'm impatient to stay with an idea for 5 or 6 years, as one often does, particularly if it's a small and delicate project that when it's up and been made and it's worked, then people will say, oh, of course we'll fund one like that. But until if you're trying to break new ground with something, it's often very hard. Or if you're dealing with subjects that are provocative and perhaps a bit impolite, it's often hard to get those doors open, and so you have to stay with it for a long time. Whereas in the theatre, if you can get a space, you can get it up, you can get it on. It can be very much reactive to the zeitgeist, where it's often very hard rhythmically in cinema to be as responsive and reactive.
Do you enjoy playing real life figures more so than original characters, or do you have a preference?
No, I mean, for me, it's strange. I mean, the character is really the last point of entry. It's the conversation, it's who you're in dialogue with. I'd read around a really interesting woman who was in a very interesting period of time, or whether it's recent history or deep history. But the story that was told about them was always a woman in a man's world. So basically, you're telling the same well-trodden story. And I think that what would happen is you put those characters, those male characters, in a really interesting, provocative narrative. And I think what's beginning to happen is we're now saying, okay, that female character is interesting, but you know, I could read a biography on her. What's the story that we're telling? How are we going to use that character to tell a story that's going to provoke and inspire and incite?